Imagine being the most powerful ruler in the world and suddenly finding yourself grazing like a wild animal. Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what happened to King Nebuchadnezzar, one of the most intriguing figures of the Old Testament. Hello, and welcome to our channel. In today's video, we're diving into the fascinating story of King Nebuchadnezzar and discovering why God took such drastic action with this monarch. If you've ever wondered about the mysteries of the Bible or how ancient lessons apply to our modern lives, this video is for you. Get ready for a journey through time, power, and redemption as we unravel the enigma of the king who became an animal. Before we dive into the story itself, let's contextualize who Nebuchadnezzar was. This Babylonian king ruled one of the greatest empires of antiquity, conquering vast lands and building impressive monuments. Nebuchadnezzar was known for his intelligence, military power, and boundless ambition. He was responsible for the destruction of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem and the exile of the Jews to Babylon. This event, crucial in the history of the Hebrew people, helps us understand the setting in which our story unfolds. The transformation of Nebuchadnezzar into an animal is narrated in the book of Daniel, chapter 4. It's important to note that this story is presented as a decree from the king himself, adding a fascinating layer of authenticity to the account. Nebuchadnezzar begins by recognizing Daniel's God, which gives us a clue that something significant happened to change his perspective. Let's examine the events that led to this dramatic change. It all starts with a disturbing dream the king had. In this dream, he saw a huge and majestic tree visible to the ends of the earth. The tree was beautiful, with abundant fruit, providing food and shelter for all. But then, a watcher, a celestial being, descended from heaven and ordered the tree to be cut down, leaving only the stump and roots. This powerful image is full of symbolism that will soon be revealed. Perplexed by the dream, Nebuchadnezzar summons all the wise men of Babylon to interpret it, but none can. Finally, he calls Daniel, known for his wisdom and ability to interpret dreams. It's interesting to note how, even in a polytheistic culture, the king turns to a servant of the God of Israel. This shows us that in some way, Nebuchadnezzar already recognized the power of the true God, even if he did not fully accept him yet. Daniel, with the wisdom given by God, interprets the dream for the king. He explains that the tree represents Nebuchadnezzar himself and his vast empire. The cutting of the tree symbolizes the judgment that is about to fall upon the king. Daniel reveals that Nebuchadnezzar will be driven away from his throne and live like an animal for 7 times until he acknowledges that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of men. At this point, it's crucial to understand why this judgment occurred. Nebuchadnezzar's problem was his excessive pride. He saw himself as the source of all his power and glory, forgetting that everything comes from God. This is a recurring theme in the Bible: the danger of human pride and the importance of humility before God. We can see parallels with other biblical stories, such as the Tower of Babel or the fall of Lucifer. Daniel, showing compassion, advises the king to abandon his sins and practice righteousness. Unfortunately, Nebuchadnezzar ignores Daniel's advice, leading us to the next act of this extraordinary story. A year after the dream and its interpretation, we find Nebuchadnezzar walking on the terrace of his royal palace. Imagine the scene. The king gazing over the vast city of Babylon, with its hanging gardens and towering ziggurats. It is at this moment of apparent triumph that Nebuchadnezzar's pride reaches its peak. He exclaims, "Is this not the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence, by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" No sooner had the words left his mouth when a voice from heaven declares that the kingdom will be taken from him. Immediately, the prophecy is fulfilled. Nebuchadnezzar is driven away from human company and begins to live like an animal. His body is drenched with the dew of heaven. His hair grows like the feathers of an eagle, and his nails like the claws of a bird. It is a shocking and dramatic transformation, meant to teach a profound lesson. Here, it's important to pause and reflect on the meaning of this transformation. God was not simply punishing Nebuchadnezzar. He was teaching a powerful lesson about the true source of power and authority. By reducing the world's most powerful king to an animal state, God was demonstrating that all human glory is fleeting and that true power belongs solely to him. Nebuchadnezzar's condition lasted for 7 times. While there is no consensus on the exact duration of this period, many scholars believe it refers to 7 years. During this time, the king lived like an animal, eating grass like cattle. Imagine the shock and confusion in the Babylonian court. The world's most powerful ruler, reduced to such a humiliating and bizarre state. It is fascinating to note that despite this extreme condition, Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom was preserved. This reminds us of another biblical truth. God is the one who establishes and removes kings. Even in Nebuchadnezzar's absence, God maintained his throne, demonstrating once again his sovereign control over human affairs. During this period of humiliation, something profound was happening in Nebuchadnezzar's heart. Living as an animal, he was stripped of everything that had once defined his identity: power, wealth, status. In this state, he was forced to confront his own mortality and insignificance before divine power. It is a powerful reminder that sometimes we need to be stripped of our pretensions to see the truth about ourselves and about God. After the 7 times, a remarkable transformation occurs. The biblical text tells us that Nebuchadnezzar raised his eyes toward heaven, and his sanity was restored. This simple act of looking up symbolizes a fundamental change in perspective. For the first time, Nebuchadnezzar truly acknowledges God's sovereignty. The king then makes a powerful declaration, praising and exalting the King of Heaven. He acknowledges that all of God's deeds are true, his ways are just, and he is able to humble those who walk in pride. This confession marks a complete transformation in Nebuchadnezzar's heart. From a proud king who saw himself as a god, he becomes a humble worshiper of the true God. It is important to note God's mercy in this story. Despite the severity of Nebuchadnezzar's pride, God did not destroy him. Instead, he disciplined him with the purpose of restoration. This teaches us a lot about God's character. He disciplines those he loves, not to destroy them, but to bring them back to himself. After his repentance, Nebuchadnezzar is restored to his kingdom. In fact, the text says his greatness increased even more. This illustrates an important biblical principle. True exaltation comes after humiliation. We see this in the lives of Joseph, David, and ultimately in Jesus Christ, who humbled himself to death and was exalted above every name. Nebuchadnezzar's story offers valuable lessons for today. Firstly, it warns us about the danger of pride. In our culture that celebrates individual success and self-sufficiency, it is easy to fall into the trap of thinking that our achievements are entirely our own. This story reminds us that everything we have and are comes from God. Additionally, the narrative teaches us about God's sovereignty over all things, including political powers. In a world where political leaders often see themselves as untouchable, Nebuchadnezzar's story serves as a sobering reminder that all earthly power is temporary and subject to divine authority. Another important aspect of this story is how it demonstrates God's transformative power. Nebuchadnezzar went from being a proud pagan king to a worshipper of the true God. This gives us hope that no one is beyond the reach of God's transforming grace, no matter how far they seem to be. Nebuchadnezzar's experience also teaches us about the value of adversity. It was through his extreme humiliation that he finally came to a true knowledge of God. Sometimes it is our most difficult experiences that lead us to profound truths and a closer relationship with God. It is interesting to compare this story with others in the Bible, where God deals with proud leaders. Think of Pharaoh in Exodus or King Herod in the New Testament. In each case, we see God confronting human pride and asserting his sovereignty. The difference is that Nebuchadnezzar repented, while others remained hardened. For us today, the story of Nebuchadnezzar serves as a mirror. It invites us to examine our own lives and ask, where am I placing my trust? In my own power and achievements, or in God? It is a call to cultivate humility and acknowledge our dependence on God in all areas of our lives. Moreover, this narrative reminds us of the importance of having people like Daniel in our lives, people who speak the truth with love, even when it's difficult. Nebuchadnezzar had advisors who likely flattered him, but it was Daniel who had the courage to speak the truth that the king needed to hear. Nebuchadnezzar's story is a story of hope. It shows us that no matter how far we have gone in our pride or rebellion against God, there is always a way back. God's grace is powerful enough to transform even the hardest heart, if we are willing to humble ourselves and acknowledge our need for Him. Now, I would like to hear from you. How does this story resonate with you today? What areas of your life need to be submitted to God's sovereignty? Leave your thoughts in the comments so we can reflect together. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the fascinating story of Nebuchadnezzar. If you found this video inspiring or enlightening, please give it a like and share it with friends who might also benefit from these reflections. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming videos exploring other intriguing stories from the Bible. Your support helps us continue producing content that deepens our understanding of the Bible and its relevance to our lives today. Stay tuned for the next video appearing on your screen now. May God bless you all.